Income Tax 2020, Practice Problem 1, Presentation 41, Education Credit, Tax Formula with the help of an Excel worksheet. Come in, relax with Income Tax 2020. Here we are in our Lacerte tax software. You don't need the Lacerte tax software to follow along, although I do think they have a 30-day free trial. So if you can get access to a promo or demo version of it or any other tax software, it could be a good tool to practice with. We're going to be continuing on with our comprehensive practice problem 1. In the first section, we entered the information related to our income items, then the above-the-line deductions or adjustments to income, then the itemized deductions or below-the-line deductions. Then we added a business with the Schedule C business. Now we're focusing in on the credits, which in essence are on page 2 here. The credits that we have looked at thus far, including the $2,500 for the dependent or the child tax credits and other dependent. Now we're looking at the education credit. So we have the education credit, which typically will be broken out between the refundable and non-refundable portions, the refundable portion being related to the HOPE credit rather than the lifetime learning credit. So that's what we have now. Now we're going to enter this into our Excel worksheet. And remember that our goal is to enter it into the Excel worksheet so we could basically visualize this thing in terms of a tax formula, because that's the easiest thing to kind of visualize in your mind as opposed to a 1040 with a bunch of more extra boxes in it. And 2, we want to basically practice entering it in 2 separate locations so that we can double check our work. So with regards to the credit here, then we will typically have a form, a data input form for this, and that would be the 1098T. So that, of course, would be the indication that we have an education credit. Then we need to see whether or not we qualify for which credit, if it's the HOPE credit, and if not, then the lifetime learning credit. And then we can go ahead and enter this into our system. So I'm going to go over into the our Excel, and we're looking into the credits items down below. So we have the tax credits here, and then we have the other tax credits and payments. Now this is kind of confusing because although we don't need any refundable credits because we owe taxes, our tax liability is not going below 0, they still break out this credit between the 2 components. So if we want to kind of follow the alignment of this formula, we should be breaking out the credits between this ones and these ones down here. Or you can basically group them all into one category and kind of group them together. This bottom portion of the tax formula gets a little bit confusing because of that breakout. The mixing up of the payments and the credits, and then the breaking out of the refundable credits and the non-refundable. So remember up top, these credits are the ones that you would not be able to take the tax liability down below 0. So these couldn't be used to take the federal income tax liability below 0, whereas these could. These refundable credits, that's why they're going to go down here. So if I go into the credits then on this line item, I got the education credit. Now it maxes out at the $2,500. So basically we have over the amount that would be maxed out at the $2,500, and we should, if we're going to break it out between the 2 portions, the non-refundable portion would be the $1,500, and then I would then go over to the refundable portion, part of the credits, which is going to be in the same section as the payments items. So I'm going to go into and I renamed it to payments and credits, and it might be more appropriately named payments and refundable credits. We're going to be down here in the refundable area. So notice this is the same section where we have the withholdings from the W-2s for the $8,000, the quarterly payments of the $2,500 per quarter of the $10,000, and now we're going to include our credits in the same area, which seems kind of weird, but remember they're acting like a payment. The value of them is the same as the payment, and that's why we're going to put them down here, and we're going to group them in with the same category of the payments, because these are the refundable portion, which could just add to the refund, basically, as opposed to the non-refundable portion, which could only take our liability down to 0 but not past. So now we're going to say that this is going to be the education credit. The $1,000 portion is going to be over here. That's going to be now adding up to our refundable credits and payments to this $19,000. So if we go back to the first page of the formula then, no change has happened to the taxable income. No change has happened to the tax calculation before credits and other taxes. And then we had our tax credits, which has now changed. This is going to be increased by that non-refundable portion, the $1,500. Then we have the other taxes has not changed. This is the taxes for the self-employment taxes on the Schedule C business. And that's going to give us our total tax. and then, which is kind of deceiving because we still have some credits down here that are going to be grouped with the payments. And then we have the total payments and refundable credits at that $19,000, including the payments from the W-2 withholdings, the quarterly payments, and now the refundable portion of the education credit, which was the $1,000. And that should bring us to our tax due or refund of the $4,813. So this second half of the calculation can get a little bit confusing because of these breakouts, the way this works. Let's tie it out to the tax return now. Once again, on page 1, there shouldn't be any change. We're still at the 86,221. Might be a dollar difference for rounding. So we've got the 86,220. Tax shouldn't change. That's the 10,459, which we're relying on Lacerte to calculate. So we got the 10,459 there. That's what we have here. So 10,459. And then we had our above the line or our non-refundable credits at the 2,005 plus the 1,005 for the total of the 4,000. That of course ties out to our 4,000 here. That had changed. It went up by that 1,500. And then we had the self-employment tax at the 7,728, the 7,728. So if we go back on over, we have the 7,728, which is the added tax for the self-employment tax. That didn't change with this new item that we did here. And that's going to give us then the total tax of the 14,187. So we got the total tax now, 14,187. And then we have then the payments, the 8,000 from the withholdings, the 10,000 from the estimated payments that we made quarterly payments. And so that's going to be the 18. But then we have this refundable credits that's now included down here of the 1,000, even though again, it's not really refundable because we're not getting it's not, the refundable means that it took the liability past zero and we're still getting a payment, but it's the refundable portion. It's the amount that could have been refundable if necessary. So it's kind of a little bit unusual. In other words, note that this credit up top, the 2,000 child tax credit, could have a refundable portion to it too, but it didn't put it down here in the refundable portion. So down here, in other words, we could have had the additional child tax credit if it had a refundable portion if our tax liability went below zero, but it didn't. So that calculation puts the whole amount up here in this section. The education credit, the HOPE portion of it, the HOPE education credit, breaks it out into a refundable and non-refundable portion, even if you don't need kind of the refundable portion. So in any case, that then adds into like the payments down here of the 19. So that's going to result in our overpayment of the 4,813. That, of course, being the total tax of this 14,187 minus the 19,000. So we have an overpayment of that 4,813 at this point.